Good afternoon. I am Chandan Raikar from Department of Media Studies, Reva University. Today, we are having our fourth session of our national level faculty development program on contemporary approaches in media. I request all the attendees to please turn off your web cameras and keep your microphones on mute. However, you may unmute them during the question and answer session. Also, please note that it is mandatory for you to fill in the feedback form to get your e-certificates. The feedback form will be provided at the end of the session in the chat box. Over to Ms. Bhagya now to introduce our guest speaker for today's session.
Yeah,
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, my mic was on mute. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all. Welcome, Mr. Brijesh Kallappa. He is an advocate in the Supreme Court, legal advisor to the government of Karnataka with the rank of Minister of State and former Additional Advocate General Haryana. He has a sustained interest in public affairs even after his student years. He is a former journalist and has a wide range of interests, including reading and traveling. On the professional front, he has worked with several legal luminaries on subject of importance in civil, criminal, water and electoral laws and has individually represented governments, eminent individuals and major industrial houses. He is gifted with the prowess of distinctive, sharp-edged analysis and has advantage of surmounting well-accepted beliefs by his inquiring nature. He is also the spokesperson of Indian National Congress. Welcome, Mr. Brijesh Kallappa. Over to you, sir.
Excuse me, sir, your microphone is on mute, so you can unmute it. There's a mic here. Yes, yes. Now you're heard, sir.
Yeah, okay. No, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me for this session. I'm not, for some reason, able to see any of you, and I'm only able to see a computer graphic. So, can I have some idea as to where the participants are from, and how many of them are there, and such others?
As of now, there are 31 participants, and uh, so
So, 42 attendees.
I request all the attendees to please mute your microphones so that we do not disturb the speaker. Could you please mute your microphones, please? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd really like it that if you would feel that I'm either going too fast or if I'm treading along territory which you're unfamiliar with, if you'd like some kind of a background, I'd be happy to provide it. And I think it should be a session which is useful to you. And, I'd really start with the very first case of media trial, which is way back, which is, I think, at least 20 years old. And I think it's the Jenny Jones case. And Jenny Jones was a media presenter in the United States. She worked for the Warner Brothers. And Jenny Jones made a show in which she tried to be Oprah Winfrey of the United States, but then the Oprah Winfrey style, I think very few people could actually emulate. Therefore, she tried a different format, which is called ambush television. And what happened is that she used to have an audience and say that, look, if any of you would like to profess your love for another person, then why not say it on national television? So she thought that people themselves would be a good means of raking in TRPs and ensuring that people watch television shows. And this show went on for some time. And during one of those shows, she invited three persons. And one person was a person called Scott Amador. And there was another person called Jonathan Schmitz. These two are the main characters. There's another lady also by the name of Anna, who's also invited to the Jenny Jones show. And all of them are asked via phone if you'd like to participate in this kind of television, expression of love. So they all are fairly happy to participate. So then what happens is that Jenny Jones invites them. They're all provided air tickets, so they fly down to the studio and they watch the entire sequence. And the first person to go in is Scott Amador, and he has worked in the United States Army, and he's a tough guy. And along with him is Anna. Both of them go and occupy their seats in the studio. And in the studio, Scott Amador uh, tells the audience that look, I have a crush not on Anna but on a person called Jonathan Schmitz. Therefore, he's a gay, and so he has some kind of a attraction towards Jonathan Schmitz, and they all actually are friends, and they meet each other fairly regularly, and so on and so forth. And when Jonathan Schmitz comes to the studio, uh, the recording is shown to him that Scott Amador says that, look, I'm really in love with Jonathan Schmitz, and I'd like to perform a certain sex act on him. So at the at the show itself, it's not very apparent that Jonathan is either embarrassed or is shocked by this invocation of love and this statement that he's uh, being wooed by a member of his own sex. And so he responds very nicely. In fact, he says that, look, I'm a heterosexual. I'm 100% heterosexual. And of course, the banter goes on. But you see, this television episode was never released to the public. And I'll tell you the reason why it was not released. It was not released for this reason that 3 days later, 3 days after this episode was filmed, they all go back to their towns. And then Scott Amador leaves a note for Jonathan Schmitz, which is sexually loaded. And obviously, there have been banter and so on and so forth, and back and forth and all this. But he leaves a sexual note for Jonathan Schmitz, at which Jonathan Schmitz, once having read that note, he goes to the bank, withdraws some money, then uh, goes to the local grocer, and you can actually buy a gun in the United States. So he goes to the grocer and he buys a gun, and he's off to Scott Amador's house. And obviously, later it turns out that the conversation is that Jonathan says, "You're coming very hard on me," right? And Scott Amador says that makes yet another sexual loaded statement. And so Jonathan Schmitz threatens him, to which Scott Amador says that, look, it doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. But in order to protect himself or to either appear menacing to Jonathan Schmitz, he picks up a chair and he stands in a threatening fashion. The end of the story is when Jonathan Schmidt shoots him and kills Scott Amador. Now, the larger legal question is that without Jenny Jones' show, would such an event have ever occurred? Now, this is something which I think the answer is, like everybody says, is blowing in the winds. And because they have not been at each other's throat for the last so many years that they know each other. But the tipping point was the Jenny Jones show, in which she made Scott Amador say that Jonathan Schmitz was his secret crush, and that he was, wanted to perform a certain sex act on him. So there is also the feeling that, look, Jonathan Schmitz felt that he felt rather humiliated by the fact that, in his community and otherwise, he would otherwise be seen to be a gay, he would otherwise be mistaken to be a person of homosexual tendency. And, there is also homophobia involved with the whole episode. So this happens, and the matter goes to trial. And in the trial, Jonathan Schmitz is sentenced to 25 years in jail. Of course, he is not given the first degree charge of murder, but on a second degree, he is convicted and he goes away. He's locked up for 25 years. Now, Scott Amador's brother decides to sue the corporation, which is Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers is then taken to court, and they have a outstanding lawyer, Scott Amador, and they move court. And in the cross-examination, Jenny Jones is virtually she breaks down in court virtually. Although she has been tutored and she performs rather well, but when certain questions are asked, she is not able to hold a stand. As to one main question is, was there anything in writing that you've obtained from the audience or the participants which permits you to ask these questions? To do they permit themselves to be humiliated? None of this has been done, although she maintains that this has been done orally. And in any event, the matter goes on, and the jury decides to award the family, the Amador family, $25 million in compensation. And matter goes to the Michigan Supreme Court, and there the order comes to be stayed, and the family has received nothing so far. But the interesting point is that, as you know, the media survives on TRPs. And while all this is on, the Warner Brothers, which is actually the defendant in this case, has created a television network called Court TV, in which this entire episode, the court proceedings, are telecast live. And therefore, Warner Brothers is not just, on the one hand, it's the defendant, but it's also being benefited because the court appearances and court proceedings are watched so avidly by hundreds of thousands of Americans. Therefore, they are beneficiaries in both. That on the one hand, they are the defendants, and two, the fact that they are defendants and how the entire thing played out, they are being watched by millions. So their TRPs are up, their revenues are up, and they are the beneficiaries in the whole process. And ultimately, like I told you, the Amador family gets nothing. Jonathan Schmitz goes to jail for 25 years, and the Warner Brothers walks all the way to the bank laughing very happily. So this is, one of the stark stories, which I don't know if you've been taught in your media studies classes, but this is something which actually has happened and is transpiring on a daily basis in India. Because when you see, that in the first case, what begins with Sushant Singh Rajput's case, which is did Sushant Singh Rajput commit suicide or was it murder? From there to the NCB calling people who are otherwise consumers. They are not people who have been selling drugs. They are not the people who are otherwise involved in the business of selling drugs. At most, they might be consumers, and consumers are not penalized heavily by the law unless you hold above a specific quantity. If you're consuming within a permissible quantity, it's perfectly fine. And that too, insofar as cocaine is concerned, it's certainly forbidden. But as far as lesser drugs are concerned, they're permitted. But there is a um, media circus which is on, and this media circus is trying to uh, daily make us see a certain kind of television and watch certain kind of things. And so far, for the last, I think, 3.5 months, Sushant Singh Rajput's case and its many contours, because the fact that the Bollywood was also heavily involved in this, has seen that, people in India are generally diverted from what the real issues are. And what really are the real issues? Real issues are that COVID is progressing at an alarming pace. One, that the deaths, one, are totally understated. In fact, Trump, in his statement, in his much watched debate, he said so. He said that people like Russia, people like China, people like India are not actually revealing the extent of their deaths. And he named India also. So when a person who's otherwise seen as a friend of the government says that, look, India is not being honest in its in the figures of how many people have died, then I think it's a very severe statement on how things are in the country. But do you see television channels speak about COVID and the number of deaths? Do you see television channels asking the government questions that, look, you promised that in 25 days the disease would be gone, uh, and where are those? Sorry, 21 days. But where are those? Where is the effect of it? Because I think, as far as today is concerned, it's the 188th day of the Honorable Prime Minister's promise. So this is as far as COVID is concerned. But what about the economy? Economy has tanked 23.9%. Now we are way below the zero mark. So therefore, we are in a recession insofar as the economy is concerned. So how are we doing? And if you open the newspaper on a daily basis, you will find that where suicides used to take place earlier, today entire families are deciding to commit suicide. So in many ways, people are being affected, and the media channels are not showing you what the truth of the matter is. Insofar as Ladakh is concerned, we have been having a very strong, resilient Chinese attack on our forces for the last at least 5 months, and nobody's speaking about it. Do you see a single media outlet speak about this? So the point is that increasingly we are moving to a stage where there is a media glare, the media glare which ought to be on certain things, which either take the country forward or behind. That is not happening, and rather what is happening is that the media is, shifting our attention or diverting our attention from the real issues to something which is far beyond. Now, why I speak about this in terms of what is a media trial is because there are people like Deepika Padukone, right? And she has often spoken about how she is, in a state of depression, and how she is not otherwise doing very well insofar as mental health is concerned. And when all this is on, uh, to push down the fact that she may or may not have been a consumer, and to kind of take it along a certain line, is doing is conducting a media trial without basic concern for human dignity. One, two, without basic concern for a person's a state of mind, right? And like I told you in the Jenny Jones case, uh, the uh, the personality of Jonathan Schmitz actually is analyzed much later, and he's seen to be a very high-strung individual, right? And a person who has often been taunted by his father, a person who is otherwise not seen to be strong in terms of mental strength. So you see, all these facets come up. What you're otherwise doing is you're throwing a person into the middle of a media circus, without ascertaining if the person has the wherewithal to withstand that kind of a circus. What happened in the case of Sarvajit Singh, I am reminded, is that Sarvajit Singh was riding on his mobile, and then a lady says that, look, he misbehaved with me, and he is abused, trolled on social media, and called names. Television channels go after him, but 3 4 years down the line, he's proved to be completely innocent. That such an incident never occurred. So Sarvajit Singh has faced the worst kind of humiliation. He has been derided. He has been thrown to the winds, thrown to the wolves. But uh, finally, it turns out that he has been completely, innocent of all charges. So there are these contrasts, and these contrasts are visible to us on a daily basis on Indian television. And I think, as far as media professionals, which you're all going to be, is concerned, I think it's a matter for all of us to take a minute and to reflect that, look, we uh, are we doing something which is true to our conscience? Because ultimately, if the media houses, if all agencies, they work according to their conscience, I think we'd have a far better country. A young lady, a 19-year-old girl who was cutting grass in Hathras village, was dragged away because her mother, who was otherwise deaf, could not hear. And then subsequently, that young girl's, the 19-year-old girl's body is found with her tongue chopped off and strangulated, spine broken, raped, and she's almost on the verge of death. Then she's taken to a hospital and put on the ventilator straight away, and subsequently she dies. Now the same girl who happens to belong to the depressed classes comes back. Her lifeless body comes back late last night, and in the very same village, the police insist that the cremation be done at night. And to the best of my knowledge, she belongs to the Hindu community, and the police insist that, look, there's no question of delaying any further. And as far as being a Hindu is concerned, the scriptures don't permit that any kind of cremation can take place in the night. It has to happen in the early morning. So the family of the girl pleads with her, with the police, and says, please allow us to take her home. Let her visit home one last time. The police refuses. They lock the family up, and they have the uh, body cremated very late in the night. It was midnight. So this is an incident which is live before us. But which channels are showing this? And this is something for you to reflect upon. This is something for you to think about, that what is happening in our country, and is this something which shows us how Indian media ought to be? Is this how Indian media ought to be the purveyors of change? Is this how Indian media uh, project certain situations to the public at large, and to influence the course of their thinking? Is this the India of our future? Is the soul of India still alive? Is the soul of India maimed, fractured? Is it possible to get the soul of India back on track? So this is all something which you'll have to think about and deeply reflect about, because you're all going to be outstanding media professionals at some point in time. And if you, I would only say that if you follow your conscience, and if you think that the job I'm doing is something which is the job of changing the course of lives, influencing history, I think we'll be better off. And with these words, I'd say that more could be taken out of this conversation if I could also hear a few questions and have some kind of a participation to know what your thoughts are on this issue. Am I audible? Am I still on?
Can I ask a question, sir?
Please identify yourself and ask a question.
Sir, I'm Dr. Baso Prabhu Jirli from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. The incidences that you quoted, so that may happen at any point of time, isn't it, sir? So,
Yeah.
because the rules are there since ages, but still people are doing it. But most of the time, we try to affiliate it with that particular political party which is at power at that time, at that point of time. So maybe it is a ruling party or opposition party, because opposition party was also in the rule at some point of time. So what do you think about the incidents without its political affiliation to any of the government which is in power, whether it is ruling or opposition or anybody?
No, I have not spoken about the opposition or the ruling party at all.
No, sir. My question is also not that particular thing. My question is, the rules are there, the laws are there, but still the crime is not stopping. So leave apart these political parties, but the rule IPC or whatever the provisions are there, they are always there. But still, so such things are happening in the society. So this is what I wanted to know. So what is the mentality of that particular thing, and how can we overcome these things? So this is what is my issue.
No. See, as far as my being a lawyer is concerned, as far as me having been a media professional is concerned, I can tell you that the rules ought to be the same whether one is in opposition or one is in government. And what is the job? The job is that the media must do its job and hold the people who are in power by the collar and ask questions. And this is something which the media had been doing extremely well when they asked questions in regard to 2G and the various so-called scams that the UPA was involved with. And I'm very happy for that. If the UPA was not able to answer questions, good. It got it got what it deserved, right? But if no questions are asked of government, then it worries me. This is what I'm saying. And as far as crimes are concerned, crimes will go on. As far as media professionals are concerned, I don't think you have very much to do in control of crime. You can, of course, influence or tell people how they must deal with the scenario and how they can be empowered. You can give them lessons in regard to their rights, their duties, so on and so forth. But I feel very concerned if the government of the day is not asked very tough questions. And this happens even in the United States, where yesterday we saw the debate, the presidential debate, but the moderator was able to ask Mr. Trump on several occasions to please keep quiet on several occasions and to tell him that, look, you're wrong. In fact, there is an Indian journalist by the name of Date. You can also follow him on Twitter. He told the president of India in a press conference that you're a liar, and he's an Indian person from Pune. So I think the holding the power of a person in office responsible is something which the media must do. It's their duty.
Sir, many times we come across with an argument that because of lack of legal awareness, such incidences happen. If you look into the Nirbhaya case, it went on so long period, and ultimately the accused were convicted and they were hanged and everything. That is fine. Even after that, we are coming across such situations. So what kind of legal awareness that we can create? Because media is doing an excellent job. There are a number of channels and every channel is giving that information, but still such things are happening in the society. This is what is my concern, sir.
No, I don't have an answer to that. That has to be more answers, maybe on a different subject. Today I'm covering the subject of media trial, so I will only confine myself to the subject. But we could talk offline.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So, hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, I'm Dr. Sukanya, heading the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, St. Philomena's College, Mysore, sir. So just now you are talking about the drugs and the media trial and all that. You said that, okay, so many of the actors are consuming, they are not delivers and all that, they are not delivering. But you said that, okay, small quantity is permissible and why media is taking so much of interest in it. But as far as I know, unless and until a doctor prescribes any drug, so without that, taking a drug in even micrograms is punishable, sir. It is a crime.
No, madam, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. But as a user, a person is allowed to take a certain amount of drugs. He cannot be convicted for it. If he's found, holding a certain amount of drugs, and it's, I think, about a 5 gram or so, that person cannot be convicted for it. And it's his right to do so. So the law makes a distinction between people who are otherwise selling the drug and people who are otherwise using psychedelic substances. And forget about it being prescribed by the doctor, because ganja cannot be prescribed by a doctor, right? But a lot of people use it. And if a person uses it beyond, if he's holding, say, 5 kilos, certainly he can be taken in. But insofar as the NDPS Act is concerned, it prescribes a certain quantity under which, if a person holds below that quantity, he is only treated as a consumer, and he is usually let off. Because you see, we are a country of 130 crore. So if people go on a fishing inquiry and they start arresting anybody who is a consumer, then you will find that nearly 30 crore people will have to be kept in various jails. So it's not possible, madam. For this reason, the law makes a distinction and says that if you're consuming, below a particular quantity, or possessing below a particular quantity, that is permitted.
Sir? So regarding the answer what you gave now, so for example, alcohol is allowed, but in Kannada what we say kallabatti, sir, that is not allowed. Similarly, this is a difference. There is a drug which is allowed and which is not allowed, sir. There are differences in it.
No, I'm. If you like, I can give you the law on the subject, but I thought this was not going to proceed to that part. But kallabatti, what you're saying, a person who's making kallabatti, he can be arrested. But a person who's a consumer can't be arrested. That's exactly what I'm saying. A person, NDPS Act, NDPS. So a person who is consuming cannot be arrested, but a person who's brewing it certainly can be arrested. So this is the distinction I'm trying to make.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. But some.
George, yourself.
Incidentally, there is a lady by the name of Rakul Preet, who's an actress who has gone to court, and the court has today said that you cannot conduct a media trial in the Bollywood drug case. So Rakul Preet has received an order from the Delhi High Court in which it's been made clear that no person can, the media cannot conduct a media trial, and anyway, everything has to be decided in a court of law. And to the best of my information, I think the NCB has also given a clean sheet to all these 3 persons, including Deepika, including Rakul Preet, and to the other lady. I think you'll see it in the news today, or the news is already out, that all 3 have been given a clean sheet by the NCB.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. This is Sudeshna from Reva University. I wanted to ask you a question regarding like how much of influence is there of the media on the court cases, like which is still in the process of trial in the judicial process. So how much does media influence the people associated with those court cases? If you can just tell us.
Yeah. Sudeshna, I think what you asked is a very important question. And the question is that does the media trial influence the course of this judgment? And I think it does, but not finally, not eventually, but at an interim stage, certainly it does. If there is a political, if there is a party, a person who has been accused of a certain act, and the media is behind such a person, and if largely people feel that there is, this kind of a thing that the person concerned has actually committed a crime, has done something. So I think certainly it becomes more difficult for such a person to get bail than any other person. For instance, to the best of my information, Riya Chakraborty has not been enlarged on bail. And what is her offense? According to the NCB, she obtained drugs for SSR, for Sushant Singh Rajput. And she obtained drugs for Sushant Singh Rajput. So therefore, if both of them have consumed together, then yes, to how much is, what is the permissible limit of drugs allowance? Yes, to itko 5 grams. So the point is that Riya Chakraborty will certainly find it difficult to get bail, but will she be convicted? No, I don't think so. In the long run, certainly not. But in the short run, if there is a media trial and the media is engaged on certain things, then certainly people feel that, look, it will be difficult because there's so much of a media glare on us that we can't certainly enlarge the person on bail just now. And most judges would kind of take it rather, it would be difficult for them to pass an order where there is a media glare. And I would say the same thing for Ragini Dwivedi and for Sanjana Galrani today. That today in Karnataka, if they're not being enlarged on bail, I think there is a large part of it is because of the media, because like it or not, judges feel that, why should I be the scapegoat in this entire matter? Why should anybody feel that either I have been benefited or that I've received something or this? So I think as far as media is concerned, it certainly influences in the interim stage. That is at the first stage. That is whether you get bail, whether something you're pressing for, that kind of relief you're able to get or not. But in the long run, it doesn't get this thing. Like I told you, Sarojit Singh and Jasleen Kaur, right? In the long run, the court said that Sarojit Singh had committed no wrong. Similarly, in the other case of Jenny Jones, the court said that held them guilty and said that you pay 25 million, but it was a higher court which has stayed the proceedings.
Okay, sir. Sir, there are certain positive cases also, like we study in terms of media trial, like the Jessica Lal murder case, or in terms of, yes, some cases like that. Nirbhaya case also to some extent. So do you feel that media trial can be justified at times?
No, I certainly say that there should be a media trial. I'm not against a media trial, right? But it should be focused on the party in power. If the media trial is not focused on the party in power, because ultimately, who is the supreme being in India or on earth? It's the political party which is wielding power. So ultimately, if the media agencies look for an answer from the government of the day, I think it would be far better than looking elsewhere. Because today you will find that very few people ask the government questions. You have been seeing this trend over the last 6 years, that despite everything, despite several failings, the government of the day is not asked questions. So there is something which has traditionally changed insofar as the media is concerned. Because as far as we knew it, in the first 6 months, there used to be a honeymoon period for any government. But after that, the media agencies would be after the government and say, give us answers. But in the present case, we find that whether it's the state government or the central government, questions are not asked of the government or the people in power. It's asked of maybe a Deepika Padukone. It's asked of maybe a Kangana Ranaut, everybody else. But the government of the day is not asked questions unless there is some kind of well. I think more largely you will find that governments are not being asked questions. And take it, you like it or not, when a mandate is there for a government, I think the government must be asked questions. This is what I'm saying.
Okay, sir. Sir, in this context, there's one more question I just wanted your comments on. So, do you feel that this media, some of the ownerships of media houses, or party affiliations of the media, or polarization of the media because of this party affiliations, do you think this is playing a role somewhere in this particular case, also in terms of the SSR case?
Well, I personally have no doubt at all that which party you are in influences how the media works today, because you will often find in a debate that the ruling party spokesperson is asked less questions than the opposition party spokesperson. This you'll find in virtually every second channel. And why that happens is something which the media has to answer. But this is my personal experience also, that even if I were to go for a debate this evening, I would find that if it's, X, Y, or Z channel, you will find that more questions are asked of me as to the failures of my party than of the government in power. So I think something has traditionally changed in India.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Manish.
Yeah, sir, I have a question. As an advocate of the Supreme Court, I would like to ask you a small question. As today, the Supreme Court has passed a verdict regarding the Babri demolition case, and I think the 32 accusers have been acquitted by the Supreme Court, including Lal Krishna Advani. So I would like to ask you as to why did it take so long for the Supreme Court to pass a verdict, as they have been given no punishments, any kind of any punishments at all, but they have been freely, they have been given a free verdict. So I'd like to ask you, why did it take so long for the Supreme Court, for giving us a simple verdict, as there are no accusers in this case? So that's my question.
Yeah, first thing is, Manish, that this is not a judgment of the Supreme Court. It's a judgment of the trial court, the CBI court.
Yeah,
and the
CBI special.
Special court.
Yes.
So the CBI court has decided after 32 years that nobody actually demolished the Babri Masjid, and it probably fell on its own. And what we have seen with our own eyes is something which may have been just an illusion or a delusion. Call it what you may, but certainly nobody has broken the Babri Masjid. Nobody has demolished the Babri Masjid. Similarly, the similar question was asked that nobody killed Jessica Lal. I think Sudeshna referred to the Jessica Lal case. So nobody really killed Jessica Lal until people woke up and started asking questions, because originally you must realize that it was the same situation, that nobody killed Jessica Lal, and everybody was accepting that kind of a reality, that no, Jessica Lal was not killed. She was actually just killed herself or something. But when civil society woke up, and when they started asking questions, when they held the government by the scruff of their collar and said that, look, this is absolutely absolute of justice, it was then that things started to turn around, right? So this is the importance of people like you, people like Sudeshna, the younger people, who will have to hold the government by the scruff of their collar and say, what is this? We have seen something happen, and today you are asking us, telling us that nothing happened. How is it for us to, how is it for us to digest? Because ultimately, today you are young people, and tomorrow you'll have children, and your children are bound to ask you at some point in time that what did you do to protect our interests? And the truth is the truth. Whichever way it's spoken is the truth, right? You know
Yes.
the truth, and you kept the truth away from us, and you allowed agencies to hijack that truth. So I think this is a question which that's the reason I spoke about the conscience. Ultimately, if you work with a conscience, we are all going to get somewhere as a nation.
Yeah.
I have a question. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, madam, you are.
Yeah. In this period, when we have corporatization of media, do you think that trial by media is also influenced by the corporatization? And somewhere down the line, the entire judiciary is under pressure, and hence the truth is far removed?
I have absolutely no doubt. If am I right in saying that Soma Datta is asking this question?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Somaji, I have absolutely no doubt that corporatization of the media has influenced media trial. I have absolutely no doubt about that. In fact, there are a series of exposés in which a particular judge who recently retired from the Supreme Court, he had passed a series of orders, all benefiting one company. I don't mind naming that company. It's Adani Enterprises. And one judge who recently uh, demitted office, he had passed a series of judgments helping the Adani group to the extent of 25,000 crore, right? So I think as far as corporatization is concerned, certainly it's wreaking havoc on both the media uh, agencies as well as the law enforcement agencies as well as the law delivery systems. So I have absolutely no doubt about that. And if something has to be cleaned up, it's the fact that this corporatization must go. You must remember that Berlusconi is a former prime minister of Italy, and he became prime minister for the simple reason that 97% of the Italian media was controlled by him, Silvio Berlusconi. So it just can't be that we wait for a time when people realize what the truth is and then decide to throw Berlusconi out. But I think the systems must be so strong. The system must be so so energetic and so vibrant that this kind of thing should not happen. I don't know, since we are only 72, 73 years into independence, I don't know if this can be done today, but certainly it should be done, whether it's today, tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. It must be done. And, corporatization certainly is the bane of both the media and of the justice delivery system.
Thank you. And in continuation to this, like in case of this Sudarshan TV, it is the judiciary, it is the experts like you from the judicial system who has actually put up their voice. Do you think in case of trial by media where corporates are influencing, such voice should be emerging, or such voice should be creating awareness that for the free and fair trial, this corporate influence should stop? Is there a process that is starting, or is it on?
No, I'm not sure if there is any process which is on, but I think the first process should be to strengthen the Press Council of India. If the Press Council of India is a toothless body and nobody takes it seriously and it's just another sinecure for a retired judge, I think it's a very sad state of affairs. And so also the Broadcasters Association. If today any broadcaster can, broadcast any rubbish and nobody is going to hold him up for it, I think that's something which is absolutely not possible to accept in a civilized society, right? Because if today Sudarshan TV is going to conduct a series on jihad in terms of UPSC jihad, then other people will say that, look, so and so caste has got so and so number of positions. Now, if everybody goes after each other, then I think there's no end to it. So, first is, I think I'm very glad that the Supreme Court acted against Sudarshan TV and also against media trials in the same breath, because Justice Chandrachud had spoken about media trials also. So I think it's very important that either the judiciary or us as civil society must do something about it. And the time is not riper than now. I think this is the right time. And through your huge network, whether the students, academics, I think we can all make a change.
Yeah, because what is happening is the credibility of the media is going down, and then their own function of disseminating news which is free from any cloud is also going down. And if that happens, then our entire faith both on judiciary and on the fourth pillar of democracy, if it goes, then to whom should we look for as the source of news?
No, see, as far as news is coming now from everywhere so much. You understand that today we have citizen journalists, and anybody with a mobile phone is capable of making news. There is a young journalist who went to Hathras and to the village of this young lady, and she has shot some extraordinary visuals of this victim. Manisha is her name, Manisha Valmiki, having been burnt in the night, and the police attacking her. These kind of visuals are phenomenal, phenomenal. I think her name is Tanushree Pandey, and she has really brought laurels to journalism by having exposed this nightly exercise of cremation. So I think anybody with a mobile phone today has far more credibility than an average journalist. So I think one, it's necessary for us to re-establish the credentials and credibility of a journalist, and two, also to make sure that as far as journalism is concerned, the standards are raised. And this is for civil society to do, for journalists to do, for teachers to do, for students to do, for lawyers to do, for all of us to do together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Zahid here.
Yes,
Hi,
Zahid.
sir. Yes, sir. So I have a question related to this topic. So I would like to ask you, as you rightly said, that the government at the central level or at the state level is not being questioned on the topics like COVID measures, what are the measures taken at the ground level, and the Chinese, what they're doing to the Indian territory in Ladakh. So my question is that, sir, as the media is being not showing the downfall of the government, and government are they are playing their own game as like the election games, and they are like even more happy that the real issues are not being covered, okay, and media is not showing them. So my question to you is that what kind of role the judicial system can play to hold the media accountable or the government accountable, but at the last, because the government is not being questioned.
See, the judiciary can play a role, and it did play a role in between 2004 and 2014. Largely, if the UPA was voted out of power, it was largely because the court took a certain stand. But then one could argue that there was more democracy during the UPA regime, and there is less democracy now. And therefore, you see, what you'll often find that as far as the strength in a house is concerned, the greater the strength of the ruling party, you'll find that the courts become more meeker and meeker when the strength of the legislature increases. For instance, if the ruling party has a magnificent strength, a brute majority, then for some reason judges also become very wary of dealing with that kind of a government. You'll find that in the UPA we had 209 members of the Congress party, but in the NDA the BJP has 303 members. So which judge is going to take them on? One, two, the consequences. If the consequences follow, then who is the greater loser? The judge. Therefore, we have often found, and people also say that during the emergency this was the same scenario. And for this reason, I think people are better off if there are coalition governments, one, and if the government has that much of a, because it has to depend on a number of things. And the argument is that the UPA 1 was better than UPA 2 because the leftists were there to kind of temper the mood of UPA. So I think increasingly people are noticing this, but Ultimately, it's the electorate which decides.
Okay, thank you, sir. So my one question related to this judges, as you said, so there are very less number of judges in our courts. If you see the district level courts or the high court or the apex court, so like how it can be covered, so like how the judges number can be increased, and what kind of role the government can play, and from the ground level. So I would just might like to understand that.
See, as far as judges are concerned, it's constantly, a to and fro between the judiciary and the government. That judiciary often feels that the government is not clearing the appointments, and the government often feels that judiciary is not making the recommendation. So this to and fro will continuously go on. But one thing I have personally seen is that the quality of the courts and the facilities which are given to court has improved largely over many years, right? So this is my personal experience. And as far as ensuring that there is speedy justice, that there is easy access to justice, I think it's a struggle, and we'll all have to continuously fight that struggle.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Sukanya ji, how are you?
Sir Sukanya, once again speaking. So, sir, we were talking about polarization of the media as well as the judiciary and all that. But I don't feel that it is confined to our country only, because as we see now, America, about the Trump and all that. So there also the same situation is there, and in many of the countries also. So one person is holding or having the control over the media, or same polarization we do see in many countries, sir. What's your comment, sir?
No, you're right, madam. Like I pointed out, that Silvio Berlusconi, he controlled 97% of the media, and this was in Italy, and this was the reason why he was catapulted to power as the Prime Minister of Italy, and he ultimately had to be demit office because of various reasons. So ultimately, the media can only help you get from point A to point B, but it can't help you remain in point B. So media cannot help you retain power continuously and endlessly. Therefore, Silvio Berlusconi also had to demit office, and Mr. Trump also will have to demit office at some point in time, and arguably Mr. Modi will also have to demit office at some point in time.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm Monisha Muttama from Court. I just want to say that media has right to freedom of speech, with respect to reporting and everything, but that doesn't mean it gives them the right to invade in someone's privacy. So I just wanted to know, how can be a media trial be a fair trial?
No, I think Monisha, you picked up a very important subject, and as far as invasion of privacy is concerned, Supreme Court is already held on that. Now, like I told you, if you're a consumer below a particular extent of mainly ganja or of even hashish, then it's actually permissible, because if you're confined to holding below a particular amount of drug, invariably the court lets you off, right? So this is one part. Second part is that if now, for instance, what you're speaking about in the case of three heroines, which is Deepika Padukone, Rakul Preet, and I forget the other person.
Yes.
Now, the important thing, Monisha, you must also remember is, since you're a lady, I'm pointing it out, that why are the men not being named? I think it was surprising to me that only heroines were being named and not the men. I think that was something which shocked me as a person and made me feel very sad that on the one hand, women are paid a lesser remuneration, and two, are they the only ones taking drugs? If you're going to name people taking drugs, then name the whole lot, name all the men. But why are the men not being named? So ultimately, if you're using women as some kind of a device to distract, well, that is working. But ultimately, I think as far as the media trial is concerned, it certainly invades the privacy of an individual. And I pointed out for this reason only that Deepika Padukone has spoken of her struggle with mental depression. Now, this kind of a media trial is certainly going to hit her very badly. Now, the effect of that, and that's the reason I also spoke about Jonathan Schmitz. And Jonathan Schmitz was had been repeatedly insulted by his father in public, and he had a a very weak personality. And when this happened to him, that somebody came and said that I have a crush on you. So this affected him very seriously. So these kinds of things do happen, and this is certainly invasion of privacy. And more such suits must be filed. Only then I think the media will get an idea that this ought not to be done.
And also, sir, how fair is it to discuss openly about the evidences in the newsroom? Where is the code of conduct? Where are the ethics of journalism? Nothing can be seen here.
No, you will find that many times the media is completely wrong, totally wrong. And
Yes.
yet they will continue to say that no, this is what has happened and so on and so forth. So, and ultimately nobody holds them responsible. So for this reason, Manisha, I am suggesting that the justice, what is the Press Council of India must be strengthened. This is why the Broadcasters Association must be strengthened. This is absolutely necessary. If there is nobody to regulate the media, I think they will go crazy, and they have already gone half crazy.
True. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manisha.
Hello, sir. I'm Shambhavi BN from Reva University.
Yeah, Shambhavi.
Yeah, if there is a crime happened by big shots, maybe like famous personalities or political people, and media will have all the evidence to prove that they are wrong. But what if there is a pressure, or what if they threat the channel people by saying not to reveal the telecast or not to reveal or telecast it? How to overcome this? What to do then?
So this is happening on a daily basis, Shambhavi. You'll find that there has been a report recently that people from certain channels were talking to either the offender or people and saying that, look, we'll hush this up, give us a certain amount of money. So you'll find that that media is being used as a tool of blackmail. It's continuously being used.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Hello, sir. Monisha here once again. So recently about the Sushant Singh Rajput case. So initially the CBI took over the case and they were going on well for a few days, but suddenly they started to charge on the drug about all those things. But the actual case, the murder case, is still in hold. When will they actually come back to the case, or are they trying to divert it into something else, or just to let go of the Sushant Singh Rajput case? When will he get justice?
No, actually, Monisha, you will find that there are some ingenious ploys by governments to try to divert attention from issues which ought to be attended to and ought to be addressed by the public. And why was Deepika Padukone given notice to appear before the NCB on a particular date? And that was exactly the date of the farmers' rally. Why was that done? So I think the answer is known to everybody, but nobody wants to speak about it.
Yeah. So this is Manjo from Christ University. I do have a small query, right? So this is, this is actually embarrassing that Prashant Bhushan has been held guilty of contempt of court. By the court. At the same time, 4 judges, when they have held that press conference years before, right, against the then CJI, it was not considered as a contempt of court. In both cases, the situation is more or less the similar, right? So what both the I mean, both the judges as well as the advocate trying to expose is same in one way or other. How do you see that, sir?
In fact, let me go a step further, Mejo. There is a lady who made some very grave charges against sitting Chief Justice of India. She said that he had sexually abused her, right? And that lady was asked to leave the position. She was thrown out of office, and subsequently the judge was held to be innocent, and he came back to work. Now, interestingly, that lady is also back to work. She is also working in the very same Supreme Court. So was what she said not a contempt of court? If she was lying, then she ought to have been hauled up for contempt of court, right? Because if she had lied, then certainly she had performed contempt of the court, because she was making a grave allegation against the Chief Justice of India. And for that, she had to leave office so long as the Chief Justice of India remained in office. And only when he demitted office, she came back to the court. So either she is right or she is wrong. Just think about it.
Okay, sir.
All right. Today we have reached the end of the session. Sir, that was a very contemplative talk. Your ideas and perspective have stimulated our rational thoughts. We would like to thank Shri Brijesh Kalapa for spending his precious time with all of us in this virtual platform. His talk on trials in media and social and legal perspectives have provided us with pragmatic insights. He has provided us with expert knowledge from decades of his experience and illuminated us by his thought-provoking ideas. I'm sure all of you have found this FTP session knowledgeable and loved listening to Brijesh, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session.
Thank you, Chandan. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
I would also,
Thank you, sir.
Yes. I would also like to thank all the attendees for spending your time in attending the 4th day of our faculty development program. Dear attendees, please note that it is mandatory for all of you to fill the feedback to get
So
your
one thing, so actually today the chat box is not active, so can't see the feedback form.
That's true. The chat box is not accessible to the participants.
Oh, okay. Let me just check.
But
Check
it is available in WhatsApp group, sir.
Yes. I've also posted the link in WhatsApp group.
My WhatsApp number is not
No, but
given.
all of us are not there with you in the WhatsApp group.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, all right. I'll rectify this and make sure that you get the feedback link.
Okay, thank you.
It would be better if you post send emails.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
You too, sir.
Thank you.